So welcome to Transform Gov, the podcast that explores the big ideas and the bold moves shaping Ireland's digital transformation, or we should just call it Government Services Online. So Transform Gov is part of the Ireland e-Government Awards, more about that later, and brought to you in association with our partner Accenture. So I'm Maeve Neefsey, and with me today is Sabahat Khan, who's the the Assistant CEO and CIO of the LGMA, which is the Local Government Management Agency, which you probably all know, but I'm just making sure. And Sab's leading the Local Government Digital and ICT Strategy 2030. So that sets out a very ambitious set of plans. The plans basically are that they get 90% of applicable services online for all 31 councils by 2030. So I'm dying to hear more about that. And Sab has got 30 years experience in very senior roles in global kind of big organisations, including Citibank, Moody's and DTCC, which you may know as the organisation famously known as the plumbing of Wall Street. And he's no stranger, therefore, to managing complex and high-stakes systems. So Sab, you're very welcome to Transform Gov.
Thank you so much, Maeve. It's a pleasure being here.
Good. So look, I cannot get into the nitty-gritty without asking you, how does a lifelong New Yorker who's worked with some of the biggest global organisations in the world end up, now I don't mean end up in a negative way, but end up working in Ireland for the LGMA, leading a huge, big transformation for our local authorities? How did that happen?
I think it's destiny, right?
Okay, destiny. Excellent.
So my wife is Irish, and she would tell you, had the misfortune of meeting me in the States, because then she was stuck there, right? But I have been coming to Ireland for over 20 years now, at least once a year. And I fell in love with Ireland from the get-go. My first trip here, I just had sort of this feeling that, oh my God, this is almost like a second home to me.
Yeah.
And then, we had an opportunity. There was always discussions about moving. But she didn't have any family in the States, which is very difficult, right? We had 3 children who we accumulated over the years, right?
Yeah.
And then we had an opportunity to make the move, and we did.
Yeah.
And here I am. What better way to get ingrained in Ireland than to jump right into
Local authorities.
Local authorities,
I know,
exactly.
Because local authorities affect every one of us in a very personal way in our lives. So, and was it a big transition coming from, I suppose, private sector, commercially driven organisations into one that's really worrying about citizen services and maybe works in a different way?
It is, and it isn't. It is because sort of the focus is different, right? In a more commercial organization, private sector, the focus is on revenue and profits, and those are important things, obviously. In the public sector, obviously, how we impact the lives of the everyday citizens is very important and excuse me, a primary attention for us. And for me, I'll tell you, my entire life, in some way or form, I was always getting pushed in a nice way towards the public sector.
Yeah.
I always fought it for whatever reason, right? Yeah. Maybe my priorities were different. But now I'm at a place in my life where I thought that I want what I do to have meaning and affect the general population, rather than just profit. And
it's funny because when I was getting ready for today's interview, I had a look at your LinkedIn like everybody does, and I saw that you took some time to work for the Red Cross or to volunteer. So it's obviously in your DNA in some way?
Yeah, giving back I think is very important. Any opportunity that I have had to give back, I've taken it. 9/11 was a pretty transformative time for all of us. For me, being in the New York, New Jersey region, I felt it firsthand. So that's where I jumped into the Red Cross and the support they were providing on ground zero. So that was very transformative. That
must have been traumatic. Well, I mean, was it? I don't want to put words in your mouth. But
I traumatic, yes. But I'll tell you, it was almost a shock first. I was actually in the World Trade Center the night before.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And when I say night before, it was about 2 a.m. before.
What were you doing in the
I used
trade
to take
center
the train
2 a.m.?
from there.
Okay.
Yeah. I lived in Jersey City, New Jersey. Yeah. I would take the train from the World Trade Center because it was the shortest train back. So I remember being there and going to a 24-hour shop and buying a drink, a Diet Coke, I remember explicitly, and then coming in and then waking up the next morning and finding out this had happened.
Yeah.
But, I think even through tragic times like this, how people came together, that was pretty amazing. The first time I went to Ground Zero, more than trauma, it was a shock. It felt like I was on the set of a movie. It didn't seem real.
Yeah.
But how we all came together, I think that was, we should emphasize that versus the tragedy that took place there.
I suppose things like that bring out often the best in people.
Yeah.
Where we've nothing else to do except help each other in a way.
Yeah.
If you choose to.
Yeah. So we had a group of us, friends. We decided that we're going to volunteer with the Red Cross, and we would work during the day. And then right from work, we would go out to Ground Zero. And my job was making coffee.
Okay.
Right?
Okay,
so
yeah. That's a very important role.
Very important for the rescue workers, the relief workers. They were barges that were set up for them to come and maybe take a rest. Mm-hmm. And I was making giant pots of coffee.
Yeah.
So I like to think that I got some skills in coffee making in that. Yeah. But really, all joking aside, it was so impactful just to be able to contribute the little that I did. It was one of the life-changing events that I've experienced.
Yeah. And I know that we moved to the States when I was quite young for a period of time for my father's work. I couldn't believe how generous Americans are in terms of as neighbours. So I think that's in them as well. When there's a crisis, they're extremely good. Now, I know there's lots of other sides of America, and we're not going to go there, but there's a very community-driven side to Americans.
Look, like anything else in life, there are pros and cons, there's pluses and minuses, right? But all in all, having grown up in the States, I saw the best in people, right? And maybe, we need to look for the best in people because it's easy to start picking on the little minutiae details that are maybe not the best.
Well, I think that everybody's concentrating too much on the differences, unfortunately. But look, it'll swing around. I'm hoping it's a pendulum.
Absolutely.
It's a pendulum.
It's a transformation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a transformation.
Yes.
So look, let's get back to our day-to-day. And in terms of the ambitious targets of 90%, of relevant services online, what are you looking for? What's success look like for the citizens?
Yeah. So again, this is one of those. As soon as I found out that the target was 90%.
Okay, it wasn't your target.
Well, I mean, it was a collective target, right?
But
again, somebody has to be tasked with moving the needle.
Yeah.
It's a little daunting to think of it that way because the local government services, the service catalog itself is about 1,100 services deep.
Wow.
So 90% of that is fairly daunting, as I mentioned. So what we have done is we've taken a slightly different approach. The first thing that we did was we wanted to determine what were the services that were relevant. So we've done some heavy lifting in terms of analysis. We came up with parameters that we used to look at the service catalog. And we were able to narrow down the services to about 650.
And so
about
do you
half.
mean like a criteria for what
Correct.
goes top of the of the rank, what goes further down?
So we looked at things like usage, the impact of the external, the consumer, the citizens themselves. There were also some services that by default we found out that we couldn't digitize. So for example, if there were services like 3D printing is a service that the local government offers, can't really digitize that. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So based on that analysis, and we did come up with a robust set of criteria, it's about 650 services. The next thing that we did was we classified the services by business process. And let me explain what I mean by that. So for example, grants, we consider that a business process.
Okay.
There are about 130, 140 different types of grants. But if we can digitize at the business process level, you by default will digitize 140, for example, grants at one time. What we found in our analysis was about 40 business processes, if I remember correctly, plus or minus, accounted for 80% of the services that were in scope. So it's a lot more manageable.
Yes.
If we start digitizing
absolutely.
at that business process layer.
And do you envisage that the process for the grants, for example, is going to be common? Across all the different local authorities, because it's the same grant, I'm guessing.
Exactly.
It's not.
So we've done a lot of analysis in the grant space. The funding sources are the same, right? The processes are the same. And now some local authorities have digitized the front end. And by that, I mean how a citizen would request a grant. So they have a front end where they can go in and enter the information. The funding sources have digitized some of the back end provisioning. What we're looking for is where is the commonality in terms of digitization? could we extend the digitization across multiple local authorities? And one of the other things that we are looking at, working with the funding sources, is there a national solution that we should build, one grant solution?
Yeah.
Or is it okay to continue the way we are in a federated model? We haven't arrived at a solution just yet.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a very good point, the federation, because if you think about it, people think of local authorities as kind of independent organisations, really. So you're the glue now that's coming to bring them all together. And how are you doing that? You know, how do you avoid people, pulling back?
Very carefully, right? Look, the autonomy of the local authorities is very important. We have to maintain that. But at the same time, we have to look at efficiency and cost effectiveness. At the end of the day, this is taxpayer money. This is a citizen's money. Building something 31 times may not be the right solution every time. So what we are doing is we're taking a look at where the solution can be centralized and where the solution could be a hybrid versus where we would have to have local solutions.
I suppose the challenge for local authorities, just because we've done so many interviews now and learned so much in a way through Transform Government, is there's a big challenge in budget. So it's either I don't have the budget to do it anyway. So the idea is less and less feasible to go off and do your own thing, right? It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. It is. And skills. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the key enablers in the strategy or the realization of this vision is the ability to build to share. So, for example, if one local authority has built a particular solution around a particular grant, as an example, instead of just having it available to that one local authority, we make it scalable so that other local authorities can basically lift and shift it into their environment. That build to share, I think, is going to be instrumental in realizing this vision.
And it's not that similar in a way to the vision for the OGCIO, really, which is... It's very much the similar. I mean, I'm not saying they're exactly the same, but you're saying, look, if there's something there, if we can all build it to scale and reuse, it's going to save a lot of money and hassle and time, of course. Yeah,
it's just practical, right? If one authority has built it, let's make it available to the others. One of the things that the LGMA and our teams are really focusing on is making almost like the inventory of what is available in a digital fashion. So, for example, local authority 1 may have a solution that local authorities 2, 3, and 4 don't know of.
Okay.
Just having insight that here is a solution that has already been built has been very helpful.
That is just speaking our language because, the Ireland League of Awards is not a panacea for everything. But one of the things we notice that people don't get a chance to share what they're doing with each other. And so they can kind of go off and start something, whereas Joe down the corridor, I'm joking, but, just not far away, has done it already. Why on earth? So you do need to facilitate that, I suppose.
Yeah.
And it's not just about digitization. It's not. It's actually a kind of unveiling what's there.
It is. Facilitation is the term that you use. The way I think of this, Maeve, is we get so caught up in the daily whirlwind that getting our head out of that whirlwind to see what is happening around us.
Yeah.
Is not always apparent. We want to do it. We just don't have the time to do it.
Yeah.
We are making that information available.
And are there particular examples of innovative digital services, perhaps, that you have facilitated, across a large number of local authorities already that we might be aware of or may not be aware of?
Yeah, so one particular solution, this is a central solution, right, is the National SOC, or Securities Operations Center, which the LGMA has stood up. This is a co-funded project between the EU and the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage. And the idea there was everybody has to deal with the cybersecurity, technology, risk management threats that we all kind of navigate every day. Instead of each local authority having their own solution in place, which can become costly very quickly, having a central solution that the local authorities can subscribe to is just more cost effective. And then the name of the game in managing cybersecurity threats is communication and collaboration. Having a central SOC solution by default gives us that. So that is something that the LGMA has stood up. Almost half of the local authority are either on or about to be on. We actually have a number of local authorities that we are in the process of coordinating the onboarding. But that would just be very powerful. This is the first security operations center of its kind in Ireland that is bringing such a vast set of entities together.
And of course, you're telling each other what's going on. If something
Exactly.
happens, everybody gets that information straight away, which is the communication part, right?
Exactly. And, we partner closely with the NCSC. I've taken it upon myself, when I'm really big on collaboration. I think we're all in this together. Let's not do it alone. I took it upon myself to start reaching out across the border to see what is happening in the other jurisdiction in Northern Ireland.
Yes.
Right? So they're dealing with similar challenges from a cybersecurity perspective. So the more we can improve that communication and collaboration, the stronger we are, right? There's a saying that you're as strong as your weakest neighbor.
No, your weakest neighbor.
I'll call it neighbor.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm taking that to heart, right? Yeah. How do we kind of lift all of us together?
And are you getting reception of positivity, I presume, from your neighbours?
Well, we are. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, some of the entities or local councils in Northern Ireland have asked us to advise them on some of the security operations center nitty-gritty details.
Okay.
Which is tremendous, right?
Yes.
Some are going out to tender for setting up a solution. They've come to us and said, hey, can you give us some consultation on this? Which is great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I know that when we were getting ready for the interview, I was talking to yourself and Aisling, your colleague, and everybody who's watched our podcast or been at the awards knows Aisling Highland, came from Fingal County Council, and now she's heading up your digital implementation of your strategy. You mentioned that you'd done a roadshow, so I presume that involved going around to all the local authorities, right?
It did.
Okay.
And the twofold reason for that. Number one was it gave me an excuse to visit all of Ireland, right? So I had to do that, right? But all joking aside, I thought it was very important joining the sector that I had to go out and visit all of our constituency.
Yeah.
So I visited all 31 local authorities while there, met with the chief executive, their management team, the IT teams who are deep partners in this journey for us. And I'll tell you, I found it very rewarding. What we found was there were themes that started emerging.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Opportunities, areas of challenge. And what was even more interesting was some local authorities thought that the problem was unique or the challenge was unique to them.
Yeah.
And we had to remind them, we heard this from 30 out of the 31 local authorities.
Yeah.
Which was great because
really good. Yeah.
when you have themes, you can address it together.
Yeah.
Right?
And what were the themes?
So the themes were, obviously staffing, right?
Yeah.
Skills was a challenge, right?
Trying to find the people with the skills.
Right. Yeah.
Upskilling.
Yeah. So for example, right, we can maybe dig into this on a completely, very focused podcast, but the rate at which technology is evolving is tremendous. I think this is, just unbelievable the way we're going. With all of this innovation, there are new skills that are needed. AI, Gen AI, whatever you want to call it, machine learning, automation. There's so many different things that are hitting us every single day. Finding those right skills are challenged regionally.
Okay.
Right? So for example, in the Dublins, those local authorities, there's a lot more, sort of a pipeline.
Yeah.
But when you go out to some of the more rural counties, the pipeline is not as great as we would need. That doesn't mean that their landscape is any more challenging or any less challenging for that matter. So that was something that came up. Shared procurement was a challenge.
Yes, nobody enjoys procurement.
Procurement there's a reason why we have governance around procurement, right? I am a believer. I played many different governance roles in my career. There's a time and place for governance. There's a reason why we have governance in place. But the challenge is going for procurement for the same thing 31 different times.
Yes.
Not only is it navigating the procurement processes and landscape, but it's also having to deal with the same vendor in some cases multiple times. One of the big success stories that we heard from everybody, in fact, all 31 local authorities told us LGMA provides or manages the Microsoft Master Engagement Agreement for the local government sector.
Okay.
And every local authority thought that was a huge success story.
Okay.
Because we do the negotiation, we manage the contract, we work with the vendor. So the idea that was floated multiple times was, can we do more of that?
Yes, yes. So in fact, there's an open mind to collaboration.
Yeah, there is.
Where it makes sense for people.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Look, I'm going to have to make a very, very short break. We're going to say a thank you to somebody very important. So we'll be back in about 2 minutes.
Through the power of cloud, data and AI, Accenture is helping the public sector by blending human ingenuity, technology and a delivery-focused culture to turn their ambitions into action. Be ready for any challenge by adopting a continuous reinvention mindset to deliver human-centric services that adapt and grow with your needs. Contact the team at Accenture to find out more.
So we're just back now from our little break, thanking our partner Accenture. So we were talking about themes that came through the roadshow that Sab and his team did in engaging with all the different local authorities, which sounds very positive. But how do you strike that balance between kind of a consistency in terms of systems, but not losing innovation and ideas, or even in fact being able to adapt to suit the particular needs of your constituency, because not everybody is going to be exactly the same. How are you hitting that balance?
It's an art, more than a science.
Okay,
right? Okay. And I'll jump into a little bit more on that. The delivery model of digitization, we agreed very early on that there isn't one model that's going to work. It would be case dependent. In some cases, a national solution would be the right way to go. In other cases, there may be a regional solution, because by region, there is some commonality that would apply. In yet other cases, each local authority may decide to go their own route. But the idea would be whatever is being built, there should be a conscious decision or thought process on, can we share this?
Okay.
Even if we have to tailor it a little bit.
Yeah. So there isn't you don't have to collaborate with the LGMA. It's up to you, or is that incorrect?
No, I guess you could proceed without collaborating, but I just think collaboration in general, we can't accomplish much without collaboration.
Yes.
One of the things that we are doing a lot from an LGMA point of view is acting as that sort of partner who's bringing everybody to the table.
Yeah.
Because, we will hear before other local authorities what somebody is working on. Our job is to make sure the others find out about it.
Yeah. Any exciting things you came across? Any interesting projects that you thought, God, we had no idea of that, particularly when you're doing the roadshow?
No, so there's quite a lot of innovation happening across the local authorities, right? There's a lot of work happening in pilots or proof of concepts around Gen AI, very responsibly, obviously. So we are working with some local authorities that are maybe, a little further ahead than others in AI adoption. And really the approach we're taking there is whatever we're building, you have to think about how do you scale it. Now, that said, one of the other things that we have done is working with the OGP, with Deeper and the OGCIO, we've taken the responsible use of AI guidelines, the national guidelines, and we have now created sectoral version of those guidelines.
Okay.
Because some local authorities were moving ahead with their own guidelines, which we thought it was unnecessary, right? I mean, we're all one local government sector. We should have similar guidelines, if not the same. The good news was everybody was
delighted.
Yeah, they're like, I don't have to create my own. That's fantastic.
Yes,
right?
yes, and also it's going to need to adapt.
Exactly.
And you can't be doing that on a region or even a authority by authority basis, right?
Yeah. So a lot is happening, especially in the AI space, because everybody is piloting and testing and trying the waters, right?
What do you think it's going to look like for how do you think, I suppose, automation and AI, Gen AI, is going to roll out in local authorities? Where do you think it's going to add a lot of value?
I think, I'm taking a very crawl, walk, run approach. Right now, we're all testing the waters. Some of us are further along than others. But let's assume the approach that we're taking is let's assume everybody's starting from ground zero. The initially what I am suggesting is think about things that are going to make us more productive, more efficient. So things like, something very simple as in summarizing documents.
Or finding out what grants are available to somebody based on their profile.
Right.
I mean, those kind of things.
Right. Very simple, right? Let's not, try to solve world hunger, though that would be a good one, right? But let's take baby steps. Let's try to understand what we can and cannot do. And then we start moving up the ladder from there. What I think is very important is to have some sort of a steering group or governance body around AI at the local government sector level. Who's going to make sure the right guardrails are in place.
Because there are particular things that are not the same in local authorities.
Correct.
You're going to have different challenges, so I can see that would make a lot of sense. Is that something you're working on?
We are. So we are working on setting up a steering group with cross-sector representation. We'll obviously bring in other agencies as needed, but we feel that that's a very important construct that's needed to move the needle on AI adoption.
Yeah. And then I was thinking, let's go back to what you mentioned earlier on skills. So, I suppose I'm going to say things that are probably obvious, but not everybody thinks working in a local authority is going to be cutting edge. But that's not always the case, actually. So you tell me about that rather than me saying. And then the other part is, how do you kind of accelerate that upskilling? Because, you don't want to be pulling people in. The demand is everywhere. You're not going to be able to find those people.
Yeah, so let me address the first one, the first point. Excuse me. There is a misconception or misunderstanding that local government or public sector as a whole, there is no innovation there or not enough innovation. It couldn't be further from the truth. The kind of work that we're doing, and again, we're talking about Gen AI, we're not any further behind than the private sector. In the private sector, the take-up of AI has been slow and methodical, and which is what we're doing, because it's not about how fast we get it, it's how responsibly we further the cause for AI. So that's number one. Number two, I think what else is important is that pipeline of resources and skills is very important. There are some local authorities that have done quite a lot of work in promoting STEAM, right? Or STEM, but STEAM, you add the arts in there, right?
Which we need now because
which we need, absolutely, So what we are doing from an LGMA point of view is working with those local authorities to see how can we make this uplift more national. So, for example, Longford a couple of months ago had their second annual Dream Space Showcase, where there
were
one
of the entries for our awards this year. So we'll be hearing more about that. But
and maybe I can help them out a little bit, right? In this case, it was tremendous.
And what is it, Terry? What is it?
Yeah, so this is basically the equivalent in the States that we have is almost like a science fair, right? Okay. It's the opportunity for secondary school level students to showcase innovation. And I will tell you, I was invited to the event. I walked in completely no expectation, and my jaw dropped because there were over 500 students there showcasing just the kind of projects that they had done. I couldn't believe that this was secondary school students. So obviously showcasing that is important, but what I think is also just as important, maybe slightly more important from a selfish point of view, is it's really creating that pipeline for the future, right? These students getting this exposure to technology, as an example, quite a few of them will get taken aback by it and get interested in it and want to pursue it.
Yes.
And it's creating that pipeline that we need.
Yeah. And I think that, on a more macro level, I know we worry about job losses, but technology goes through those phases all the time. Yeah. And it always gets absorbed into where the difficulty is in finding people. And then it evolves, Yeah. But I think that pipeline. But I think we have to do one quick other break, by the way, because we've got to remind people about our forthcoming event, which is the Ireland e-Government Awards, and the finalists have been announced. So we're going to take a really short break, and then we're going to come back and continue the conversation. So the response this year has just blown us away. We've seen record entries. In fact, we have doubled the number of entries compared to 2024, which is really exceptional. And then Taoiseach presenting the trophies to the winners is going to make it even more special. And the event itself is fabulous. And now it's not just a glittering awards, it's much more than that. It's a great place for people to meet one another, in fact, people just like you. The public sector teams and innovators can really share ideas and find out from each other, both from the finalists, but just generally what's going on and how they can learn from some of their peers or, in fact, borrow ideas. But the countdown's on. It's just 10 weeks now. And of course, if you're hearing this video a little bit later, it could be less than 10 weeks before we're to the event, which is the 18th of September. So make sure you get your tickets and you can go and get those now before it's too late at digitalgovawards.com. And don't forget, there's also the summit. So why a summit? So the idea is that people come in with big ideas and challenges, and they get a chance not just to be spoken at, but actually to have really good dialogue and debate. There's a lot of panel discussion and a lot of audience participation focused in on public sector and how they adapt, I suppose, and take advantage of technology that's coming through. In particular, you can imagine the themes are going to be again on AI and its application within the public sector. But we're also looking separately at infrastructure and how technology is going to help us hopefully to accelerate some of the really ambitious plans Ireland has for its infrastructure. So again, I know everybody says this, but places are limited, and we do have an early bird, but that is a limited number of places, and it will close definitely on the 18th of July. So make sure you get your tickets, and we look forward to welcoming you on the 18th of September in O'Reilly Hall, Belfield, Dublin. So we're back now after a little break, and hopefully you've got some good information that you can use around the Government Awards. So one of the things that really has struck us this year is the local authority entries are quite phenomenal. I mean, they really are. So I'm not going to give anything away, but the category in the shortlists or finalists are really, really strong. And of course, last year, the overall winner was Fingal with Aisling and her team. But that virtual reality showing what a whole town redevelopment is going to look like and making people feel very close to it because they don't feel it's a threat. They actually know what it's going to feel like, it's going to look like, they can add value to it. Something like that. Is that very difficult to try and scale out? I mean, I know you're going step by step, crawl and walk, but is something like that, you know, because the amount of work that went in to get it to the stage it seems such a waste not to be able to scale it.
So, you know, that's where LGMA, I think, comes in the mix, right? Fingal did a lot of work on that in that space, specifically on that project. But they did it, again, respectfully, they did it with the focus of Fingal.
Yeah, they weren't thinking, how do we scale it?
Right,
okay.
Right. I think with LGMA, where we can add the value is now we can start thinking about this. Okay, is this something regional? Can we scale this nationally? What would it look like? What would be the implications? The concept of total cost of ownership comes into play. It's not just the cost of building a solution, it's the cost of actually operating business as usual. And that has to be considered. But I think all in all, the more we can think about things from a sharing point of view, and, you know, the venues like eGovernment Digital Transformation Awards, to your point, I think you mentioned this earlier, some local authorities didn't know what others were doing. And they found out at the award ceremony itself.
Yes.
Which is eye-opening.
Yeah.
So I know that this year, LGMA and my team, we played a pretty active role in making sure that the local authorities, A, knew about this venue, B, let's get recognition for the work we're doing.
Yes.
I think it's so important. Any transformational initiative, making sure that others know what is happening, that information sharing is critical.
Yes. And also attracts people to, by the way, working for them. Because there's a lot of interesting stuff going on.
Yeah.
Yes.
It goes back to the whole, you know, the misconception that public sector, there's no innovation, everything is slow, everything takes forever. It's not.
No.
It's not. You have to look under the covers, right? This is literally my first time in the public sector. I've always been in the private sector. And I can tell you, the work is no less challenging, is no less demanding. So I the misconception that private sector moves faster, I don't know about that.
Yeah. Particularly large organisations, which is what most public sector organisations are to a large degree. Yeah. And I suppose the other thing is that that's what Transform Gov is about, because we said there's so much going on that people don't know. So I will ask you at the end, when people come on, we say, can you tell us if somebody wants to get in touch with you to find out what you're doing? And the generosity is actually fabulous. So there's a real willingness to. So any way we can foster it, as you say. But in terms of fostering innovation at grassroots, are there any local pilots that are happening now that you're excited about that you think, that's definitely something we could scale?
There are local pilots happening. I don't know if I can talk about them, to be quite honest, just because some are
the
too
nature
early.
Being a pilot, yeah?
Yeah, they're too early. So, the whole idea behind a pilot, right? I believe in the mantra of fail fast, but let's not fail, right?
Yeah.
But again, some of these pilots may not result in anything. But the idea on innovation is to let's kick the tires and see what happens. But there's no shortage of work that's happening.
So what's going on in your world at the moment? What are you trying to make happen?
Yeah, so the LGMA, we're doing a lot of work in from a pilot point of view. One of the things that we're working on right now is setting up a sandbox.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is a contained environment where we could test out innovative technologies and products so it doesn't connect to anything else. The reason we're doing that is not only from an LGMA point of view, because we would like to try things before
and have a
we
space.
roll it out, right? But for those local authorities that may not have the resources, we want to make this available to them so that it fosters innovation. Some of the larger local authorities have sandboxes. I know that Dublin City is doing a lot of work around Gen AI, a tremendous amount of work. And they have been great partners, I have to tell you. Aidan Bly, who's one of the director of services there, he actually reached out without me having to reach out to him and said, hey, we're doing all this work in Gen AI. How can we make it available to the sector?
Brilliant.
Which is incredible, right? So going back to what we're doing is we want to set up the infrastructure and make it available to those local authorities that may need it and don't have it.
Okay. And in terms of, that role again between, you don't want people to feel the LGMA is a controller. It's a collaborator. So how do you, has that been a challenge actually, or has it not been a challenge at all?
I don't think it's been a challenge. I don't think nobody has come to me and said, oh, don't do this because it sends the wrong message.
Yeah.
I think LGMA has been and continues to be an organization in the background that's lifting up the local government sector and supporting all the work that's happening. With the digital transformation team now, we were lucky to get Aisling Highland to join our team. That team is really further solidifying the glue from a digital transformation perspective for the local government sector. And I'll tell you, the general message that we have gotten from the local authorities is, we need this, right? We need this. There's so much work going on. Sometimes we don't have the bandwidth to focus on one thing or the other. Help us to focus.
Yes. Give us that little extra resource and insight.
Yeah.
And if you were to finish up the interview and you said, okay, the one message I want to the local authorities or actually anyone in the public sector to pick up from this interview, what would it be?
We're in this together, right? And this is not just for the local government sector. This is broadly to the public sector. Let's do it together. Let's collaborate. Let's not reinvent the wheel every single time because we don't have to. More than the private sector, this is taxpayers' money. So we have to be very responsible on how we use the money. So reach out. There are things that we can certainly learn from others. And I'd like to think there are things that we can contribute to others' journey. So that's one message. The other message I would like to say is don't think that the collaboration is not there or the public sector is too slow. We aren't. There's a lot of innovation happening. We're moving just as fast, if not faster in certain cases, than the private sector. The work that we do, and I can selfishly say this because I'm in this sector, is a lot more rewarding. So attracting that talent to the public sector for the future, right? What I like to call future-proofing ourselves, that's very important.
Yeah. Well, look, we're very excited to see what's happening. And by the way, I know for a fact that Sav is going to be at the Ireland Government Awards and hopefully the Morning Summit as well. So you can meet there if you want to have a further chat. But for ending this, I'm going to say thank you so much for coming and sharing your insight. And I'm looking forward to the next steps. And thank you, of course, also to Accenture for sponsoring us and making this all happen. Look forward to finding out who the winner of the local e-government award is this year. And thank you, of course, to the team, to studio manager Peter Rice, video editor Neil Horner, sound engineer and videographer today, Lee Brennan, the man with two hats. And thank you for listening.